Hello students, welcome to Scholar IAS current affair classes. Hope you are all interested to know the recent developments. Let's get into the class. The first article is about India and its neighbors. So this is related to your GS2 paper, international relations section. Okay. So what is the news? First thing is they are trying to see how how India's relation has developed during this pandemic period. So that is what this article is about. So the first thing that we have to see is how it has been, the general outline around how India's relationship has been during COVID-19. So if you observe, India actually hosted the SAARC nations summit virtually, and it also proposed a COVID-19 package for which India actually gave about half of 20 million funding. Okay, so they proposed a $20 million package, and in that half of it was given by India for the SAARC nations. And also India ran many missions through its military wing for the SAARC nations, as SAARC countries, as well as in the Indian Ocean region or region, for supply of food and medicines to support these nations during COVID pandemic. And India also organized Vande Bharat mission, whereby Indian national standard in neighboring countries were taken back. So this did not burden the neighboring countries. That is, Indian national standard in neighboring countries were not burdening them. So that was what this Vande Bharat mission did. So this is about the broader idea about India's relation with neighboring countries, but we have to see specifically about India-China relationship during this corona time, and how actually the India-China military standoff affected the regional ties with other nations, India's regional ties. Okay, so the first thing is India always had a strategic calculation, but it got impacted by Chinese aggression in the Himalayan frontiers. Okay, so we know about the standoff that India had, and about the border issues that India had with China, that got aggravated during this pandemic period. And it also further got deteriorated when Nepal actually amended its constitution to include the Lipu Lake area in its territory. So this affected India-Nepal relations. And also China engaged with Pakistan in a defense pact, and also Pakistan had actually increased ceasefire violations from their end. So now what India needs to observe is that the strategic calculation of just viewing only Pakistan cannot be seen. I mean, India has to right now factor in a two-front war. So this is what the pandemic actually shown, and it has actually impacted the India-China relation, has actually spilled over to Pakistan-India relations, as well as other neighboring countries like Nepal. So this is about how it has impacted regional ties. So now we know what has actually happened, but what are the steps taken by India to actually explicitly mention how it wants to proceed, how it wants to have its relationship with the neighboring countries? So India actually asserted its neighborhood first policy. So we know that when Prime Minister Modi came to power, he promoted this neighborhood first policy, and this got asserted during the pandemic also. And it again, Sagar mission, the Sagar strategy, that is security and growth for all in the region. This strategy also again was stressed in the foreign policies, how they had the relationship with the neighboring countries. It actually explicitly conveyed these two ideologies. And also India has maintained a close relationship with Bangladesh. It can be seen in how the regional connectivity has improved with Bangladesh. So because the railway lines were completed during this period, as well as with Nepal also, this many other projects were undertaken with Nepal. Let it be a hydropower project or riverine project, many projects have been taken up, and it has been completed or it has been initiated. Either way, it is trying to promote this neighborhood first policy through these things. And even a ferry service was done for Maldives. So these are the initiatives that taken to promote its neighborhood first policy and to keep its regional ties stronger. And also India has considered many debt waiver requests from its neighbors. India actually has the habit of giving loans to many of its neighboring countries for development projects, and during this pandemic it has even considered debt waiver requests from its neighbors. Before this, we saw how India-China relationship actually impacts India's relationship with its neighboring countries. There is also another aspect to this India-China relationship, that is how India actually engages the other foreign countries, other external powers in this relationship. So when we look at this, India has been actually flexible about entry of other powers to help counter China's influence. So because we know China's influence cannot be tackled alone by India at this stage, so it has been flexible in engaging or allowing entry of other powers. So for instance, though it did not directly do it, it has been welcoming the US new military dialogue with Maldives. Also, America's million challenge corporations have been entering Afghanistan, Bhutan, Sri Lanka, Nepal and Bangladesh, many neighboring countries of ours, and they are trying to take away the domination of China that China had in these nations. So by trying to counterbalance it, India is actually supporting America's involvement in these nations through its development projects. Also, India invited Quad partners, that is Australia, Japan, and USA, to develop infrastructure in the neighboring countries. So though India has on its own done taken up many initiatives in promoting infrastructure as well as development projects in the neighboring countries, it alone cannot do it, and it needs partners who can actually fund a project in these nations. So for this, the developed nations like Australia, USA, they can support it, and India has invited them to develop infrastructure so that China's influence in these regions can be counterbalanced. But despite these initiatives or these steps that India takes in terms of engaging the external partners, there is one aspect where it says that India and China, whatever issue India and China has personally, it does not want any external power to directly involve in it. India intends to resolve the issue with China bilaterally. So let it be a border issue or any other military standoff that India has with China, it has to be dealt bilaterally. That is what India intends to do. India only engages with the external powers only when the whole region comes into picture. So if let it be the Asia Pacific or let it be the Indian Ocean region, India supports external powers, let it be USA or Quad countries, to get engaged and get involved so that it can counterbalance China. So this is about India neighbors relationship article, students. And the second article is on indoor air pollution. Okay, so this is an article from Hindustan Times actually. So students, so this article actually has more of content that is factual in nature. Make note of these things because it's an easy takeaway for you and it can be directly used in your mains answers. So first let's see what is in the news. The Lancet journal actually said that air pollution in India has killed almost 1.7 million people in just 2019 alone. Okay, so that is the aggressiveness of air pollution in India. That's how aggressive it is. And within that, they have said that the death rate from outdoor air pollution has increased significantly during this period, that is 2019, by almost 115%. And indoor air pollution comparatively has caused only 64 fewer deaths in the last 2 decades, that is from 1990 to 2019. Basically, they are saying that indoor air pollution has reduced significantly while outdoor air pollution for 2019 alone has increased by 115%. So what are the causes of IAP, that is indoor air pollution? First let's see what are the causes of it, and then we will look into why it has actually reduced now. The first cause is the use of traditional biomass and cook stoves. So we know that people use in villages, that too specifically in rural areas, people use biomass as a cooking fuel, and this actually what happens when it is not combusted completely, it produces range of toxic gases in many forms, let it be methane, carbon monoxide, or polyaromatic hydrocarbons or other volatile organic compounds. These are produced when you burn this biomass, let it be dung, wood or coal that are used in inefficient stoves. They basically produce particulate matter and many other health affecting toxic gases. And according to 2011 census, about 65.9% of India's household depended on solid biomass. Students, remember this is about 2011 census. A new census is coming up, so you would get a better picture of it. But still, when you compare for the 2011, the portion is very high. The percentage of people relying on inefficient stoves is high, relatively high. So this is what these are the reasons why indoor air pollution exists. Okay. Now let's see the reasons why it has reduced. The main reason for reduced death from indoor air pollution is Pradhan Mantri Ujjwala Yojana. So we know that under this scheme, the families under below poverty line were actually given LPG connection. So what happened? This replaced inefficient biomass stoves. And also, in addition to this scheme, the Unnat Chulya Abhiyan. So this actually promoted improved biomass cook stove. So whatever biomass cook stove they already had, these families in rural areas had, they improvised on them and made these two schemes actually made positive impact. And in addition to government, what the steps taken by the government, many civil society groups also help the rural societies and other below poverty families in urban areas who were relying on inefficient biomass by creating awareness among them about the ill effects of using such inefficient biomass at home. Also, they also were able to extend some access to clean cooking solutions, and they made sure that these products are affordable in nature, and they took the technology to them. So this significantly reduced the indoor air pollution and thereby the number of deaths from it as well. All this being said, still there are certain challenges in reducing this indoor air pollution. Though it has reduced drastically in the last 2 decades, it still persists, and it has to be brought down further to reduce any further impact on health. So let's see what are the major challenges. The first one is the sustained use of clean cooking technology, because the first aspect that is related to sustained adoption is the issue around the sustained adoption is the cultural issue, whereby people tend to go back to their own biomass inefficient biomass stoves because they are accustomed to it, and it's a behavioral and cultural aspect to it. In addition to that, there is an economic angle to that as well, because though the government gives the LPG connections, on a regular basis, these families, the families that are below the poverty line, they won't be able to afford it on a regular basis, the LPG connections. So it is difficult for them, so they normally rely on these biomass and cow dung, or let it be coal. So these kind of cooking fuels to sustain their cooking process. While this is a practical aspect to it, there is also another aspect that is around the policy, because as of now there is no clear definition about what constitutes clean fuel. Though right now they feel that improved biomass cook stove and LPG connections are clean fuel, but it doesn't, they haven't clearly, no policy has clearly lays down what are the clean fuels for cooking. So there is lack of clarity, and this needs to be tackled. And people should not adopt for polluting fuels as a secondary option, because as I said before, once they are not able to get access to LPG connection or any other efficient cooking technology, efficient and clean cooking technology, they tend to end up with secondary options, that is the polluting fuels. So people should actually try to restrict themselves from not adopting them. And there is also need for making sure this LPG supply has a reliably sent to these households, because as I mentioned before, this is the same issue that keeps happening again and again, because either the rural families are not able to afford it, or else the supply demand mismatch exists. So because of these two reasons, ensuring clean cooking technology for these rural areas becomes a Herculean task. So students, that is all about indoor air pollution, and this, as I mentioned before, it is an important article for your GS3 paper. And make sure that you make a note of the important schemes associated with this issue, because while mentioning these schemes in your mains answer, it gives the examiner about your understanding of the whole issue and the efforts taken by the government regarding towards this issues. So it's very important you make a note of all these pointers as well as the schemes around this. With this, we have also come to the end of this session. Hope you all like the classes. Till next class, happy learning. See you. Bye bye.